you a fucking colonizer. The family matter and the truth of the matter. Here was God's plan to show y'all the liar. They not like us. 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 They not like us.
About slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a native Black American and a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, go to nativeblackancestry.com to schedule a consultation.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners, raised up the children to worship their images, set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them, and this shit get way deeper than your pigment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me get some fists and feathers in the chat if you can hear me loud, crisp, and clear, and we'll go ahead and get this party started. Smash the like button on the way in, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the Cash App or the PayPal if you support independent media, and make sure to check out my new website, nativeblackancestry.com. You can find historical resources on Black American indigeneity, as well as access to my genealogy services. But guys, this is going to be a great broadcast. You know, I've been on a bit of a sabbatical, but we're coming back with the receipts. Oh boy, are we coming back with some receipts. Without further ado, I don't even want to, draw on with the intro. Let's just get right into the meat and potatoes. The video that we're going to watch is from a content creator called UBTV. Make sure to check out the brother, subscribe to him. But let's get into the American Indian roots that they tried to hide.
But at its root, the true reason for this DNA propaganda is to push the false historical narrative of all Black Americans being from Africa for the purposes of countering our will to claim what is rightfully ours. One thing that you will often hear is that Native Americans aren't Black, they're red with straight hair. When someone makes a statement like this, inevitably it's just because they've been totally brainwashed with a fraudulent historical perspective. Yes, long before Europeans touched the Americas, the Mongoloid Asian people crossed the Bering Strait through Alaska and started to settle here in the Americas centuries prior. But it wasn't like no one was here. The indigenous people of the Americas were and have always been Black. The image that has been promoted is that of a Euro-Mongoloid hybrid and is in no way a factual representation of a true Aboriginal American.
Come on, y'all, let's talk about it. That's why during the one-on-one personalized genealogy consultations that I provide for my clients, literally the first thing that I teach them about is the different ethnic groups of American Indians. Here, guys, I'll give you a little bit for free 99, okay? Yeah, I do consultations, 90 minutes teaching you guys what I did to trace my family's heritage and apply for tribal citizenship with the Muskogee Creek Nation back in 2021. But guys, I'm going to give you some free game, right? The first thing that I teach my clients is about the different ethnic groups. And I tell them just like this, verbatim. This is exactly how I tell them. If you end up booking a consultation with me, you'll hear this verbatim in the intro. I lay it down like this. I say, take a look at Africa. Compare a North African to a South African. They look like completely different people, different culture, different phenotype. Compare an East African to a West African, they look like they can be from different planets. And in that same vein, we have different ethnic groups of American Indian tribes. The first group are known as the Anasazi, aka the Amerindian, aka the Negro people. The Spanish also called us Negros de Terras, that translates to blacks of the land. The Spanish even delineated the indigenous black folks from the African slaves they later brought because they called us Negros de Terras, blacks of the land, and they called them Negros de Guinea, blacks of Africa. We are the oldest, original, largest population. Hundreds of millions of us there were. And as a collective people, we descend from those that they refer to as the Eastern Woodland people or the Mississippian mound builders. In more recent times and more modern times, we know these tribes in the Southeast by these different names, such as Creek, Choctaw, Calusa, Chickasaw, Cherokee. But all of these tribes in the Southeast descend from the people we refer to as the mound builders. And they are a completely separate ethnic group from the second, which are the Southwestern Plains Indians. When it comes to the Southwestern Plains, folks, we still call them Native Americans, but really they're the first migrants. These are those folks that they say migrated across the Bering Strait from Russia, Mongolia, different parts of Asia, right? This is like the Navajo tribe, the Pueblo tribe. These would be the Indians that look like this. There's a big difference between an Indian that looks like this and an Indian that looks like this. Huge difference between an Indian that looks like this. I mean, she looks like her mama's Elizabeth Warren and her daddy's Genghis Khan, right? Versus an Indian that looks like this. Or one that looks like this. And I can keep going. And I can keep going. But again, guys, if you want me to dive in deeper during a one-on-one personalized session with you, then go ahead and check out my website, nativeblackancestry.com. There's a tab where you can book a consultation with me directly. And before we get back to UBTV, also known as Uriah Brandon, before we get back to his great video, why don't you guys hear from a recent client of mine? See what they have to say.
He's knowledgeable about his information, about the American Indians, and how we change our classification over time and the different types of mounds and different rules from the French, from the British. If you want viable information, you want to really find out who in your lineage and who are the people you come from, I suggest going with Mike TV. His prices are affordable. He's not like some of these other people out here. I urge, go with Mike TV.
Now, before we get on with our regular scheduled program, I want to make you aware of something that you probably don't know. You know, it's a total misnomer that we were called Indians because Columbus thought that he was in India. I mean, he knew where he was going. They had info from the Moors and the crypto Jews, but that's a story for another time. If you're not familiar with the term crypto Jew, look it up. Do some digging. But guys, it's a total misconception that Columbus thought that he was in India, so he calls us Indians. I mean, first of all, India wasn't called India at that point in time. It was called Hindustan until many years later, hundreds of years later, I believe. Secondly, if we go with that, if we play devil's advocate, you have to ask yourself, okay, Columbus thinks he's in India, so he calls us Indians. So at what point does Columbus realize he's not in India? And why does he still refer to them as Indians? Truth is stranger than fiction. We were never called Indians because he thought that he was going to India. That's a lie. It's a misnomer. He only told the Spanish crown, Isabella and King Ferdinand, that he was sailing to find a new route to Asia. He only said that so he can secure funding for him and his Jewish pals. I mean, guys, we can get into the receipts, but this broadcast is not about Spanish colonialism, okay? But the real reason why we were referred to as Indians is because the Spanish called us Indios, people in God, because they realized we had Hebrew customs. Every European faction that came over here and saw the indigenous tribes of the America, they reached the same conclusion. It doesn't matter if they were French, British, Portuguese, Spanish, German, they all said the same thing. Damn, we think these American Indians are a lost tribe of Israel. So they called us Indios, which means people in God. And later that becomes Indian. Doesn't that make so much more sense? Then, oh, Columbus thought that he was in India, so he called us Indians. No, it never went down like that.
I call them Indians because that's what they are. They're the Indian. There's nothing wrong with the word. First of all, it's important to know that Indian, that word probably does not derive from Columbus believing he had reached India in 1492. India was called Hindustan. In his written accounts, he called the Indians una gente indios, a people in God. Indios, Indians. It's a perfectly noble thing. And I simply can't justify this awkward phrase, Native Americans. First of all, they're not natives. They came here from Asia over the Bering Land Bridge.
Wait a minute. Some of them came from Asia over the Bering Land Bridge, but our ancestors, they're Aboriginal. You notice the Indians that look like this? You notice these folks never really use terms like indigenous, autochthon, Aboriginal. They use terms like American Indian, Native American. Why? Because they know that they're indigenous to Asia, not the Americas. Come on, y'all. Come on.
However, for centuries, both of these populations coexisted. But how did this come to be? Surely, if Native Americans were black, there would be some sort of evidence. And since most people have never seen a black Indian, they just assume they never existed. Let's dig through the pages of history to identify the deception of our past. Hernando de Soto was one of the first colonial explorers to travel into the interior of the Americas. Christopher Columbus never explored deeply into intercontinental lands, only in the Caribbean, the coast of Central America, and a few areas on the coast of South America. De Soto was far more influential in westward expansion and the treachery of the conquistador. Here's a quote from the narratives of the career of Hernando de Soto. The expeditions of De Soto and Coronado were the most elaborate efforts made by the Spaniards to explore the interior of North America, and in some respects, they have never been surpassed in the later history of the country. Between them, they nearly spanned the continent from Georgia to the Gulf of California. Of the two, that of De Soto excited the most interest at the time, and this distinction it still retains. It was the first extensive exploration of at least 6 of our southern states, and their written history opens with the narratives which tell its story. These same narratives contain the earliest descriptions which we possess of the life and manners of the Southern Indians so famous in literature and history. The Choctaws, the Cherokees, the Creeks, and the Seminoles, these narratives also record the discovery of the Mississippi River and the story of the first voyage upon it by Europeans. As a young man, Hernando de Soto made his first voyage to the Americas before the age of 20. This was seen as quite the accomplishment. On his second trip, he teamed up with a unit of other Spaniards and ransacked Nicaragua. Later on that same voyage, De Soto was an instrumental player in overthrowing the Incan Empire. After executing women, children, chiefs, princes, and kings, the Spanish overthrew Cusco, the capital of the Incan Empire. Having ransacked Peru for its riches, De Soto returned to Spain to present his spoils to the Spanish crown. He is well received and accepted into the Order of Santiago. De Soto was now officially a member of the Spanish crown under Queen Isabella.
Come on, let's talk about it. Shout out to Ebony's World. Ebony says, you know what irritates me? When Africans come over here to America and call us blacks African American, that boils my insides. Fact. Africans really drive that to the ground. They really harp on that African American bullshit because Africans are regarded as global failures by and large, and their only modicum of success has been their alleged kinship to us. That's why they're always ranting and raving whenever they hear that we're getting in touch with our indigenous roots.
And the House of Castile, the very same house that Christopher Columbus sailed under just years earlier. During this time in New World discovery, Rome was aggressively sending fleets to the New World. And under Papal Bull Dum Diversus 1452, the Pope decreed that all non-Christians will be subjugated to perpetual slavery. Then in 1493, Pope Alexander, Caesar Borgia's father, signed Inter Caetera, which extended that infinite slavery under God to all lands west and south of the Cape Verde Islands.
Sorry, not sorry, but any of you native Black Americans who are still under the spell of Christianity or who practice the Catholic faith or any of these religions that were used as justification to rape and pillage and commit genocide on our ancestors, when you're living in ignorance, ignorance is bliss. We don't know what we don't know, but now that I've put you up on game, I know you may have been raised in the Christian church. I know you may have family members who are Christian and this and that, but guys, let's not practice the religion of our colonizer. Let's not do that. Let's figure out our genealogy, figure out what tribe we're a part, and let's get in touch with our ancestral tribe spiritual system. I'd rather worship the sun, if that's what my ancestors did, than worship Jesus.
The Pope also gave exclusive rights to the families of Portugal and Spain, Ferdinand and the House of Aragon, and of course, Queen Isabella and the House of Castile. On his final trip, De Soto was given permission to colonize Spanish Florida and the southeastern United States. The southeastern part of the country had the highest concentration of indigenous Native Americans. That fact still holds true to this day. As the Spanish arrived, the natives let off smoke signals up and down the coast to warn of the Spanish fleet. When De Soto landed in Florida, he brought with him over 600 men, over 200 horses, and hundreds of pigs. A little known fact about the conquistadors: they brought attack dogs, mostly mastiffs.
I'm sorry. I've got to cleanse my palate. I got to cleanse my palate with a strange mixture. I got to cleanse my palate with a mixture of what do I want? What'll do it for me? I need a mixture of some ignorant hood shit mixed with some historical context. Okay, I just hold on. There's a song that comes to me. There's a super belligerent schizophrenic song by a rapper, but it speaks on Jesus and colonization and Christopher Columbus. And I bear with me, guys. Just allow me to listen to this tune of mine for a minute or two. I mean, it really helps me cleanse my palate. It settles my spirit. I know this music may not be to your liking, but goddamn it, I just got to cleanse my palate for a moment. We ain't gonna play the whole 10-minute song. Yes, this is a 10-minute song by an artist named RXK Nephew. It's called American Terrorist. And you know what? I just want to play the first 2 minutes. Can I do that? Can I do that? And guys, I'm gonna give you a little spoiler alert. I guess I want to play it because this is the only song where niggas have put to wax. Niggas have put it to a beat. Shooting Christopher Columbus. I mean, we're not looking to violate community guidelines. We don't practice violence over here. The YouTube overlords are watching, right? The YouTube overlords are ever omnipresent. But guys, it's just interesting. It's the only song that I've heard somebody say verbatim Christopher Columbus actually got shot. So as we speak about Spanish conquistadors and colonialism, before we get too deep with the meat and the potatoes, let me just spark up real quick, relax, and listen to some ignorant hood shit mixed with some historical philosophy. Oh, it's just a strange mixture, but I like strange things from time to time. Bear with me a moment.
They say Jesus was a nephew. You know what I'm saying? They say his mom was a virgin. So when he was born, they told him he was sent from God. So he started going to village, helping the people, and they killed his ass. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Good. They killed Jesus for helping the people. That's why I ain't got patience with people. In the Bible, God dealing with Eve. They say God didn't deal with the devil. That's the reason Job had sores on his feet. That's the reason Job lost his house. That's the reason Job lost his kids. I'm reading the Bible like, what is this? Adam made Eve off of one rib. They made the world in 7 days. So Adam and Eve had 1,000 kids. Cain and Abel, they fell out beef. Me and my brother, we fell out beef. They said cocaine, that was on the tree. What if Adam would have never fucked Eve? Why Eve made that nigga eat that? That's why I don't eat bitch food now. Job lost his whole fucking family. They said God gave him 100 cows, like 200 horses or something.
And really, although he's not a scholar, although he's just a regular crack peddling hood nigga, he's speaking to the contradictions, to the hypocrisy of Christianity and colonialism.
Fuck is that worth my kid? What I did to deserve to go through this? Let me get this right. This because of Eve. Okay, I fought with Adam, but I beat the shit out of Eve. How the hell they live at the forbidden tree? Somebody show me the forbidden tree. I believe God, but I ain't too religious. How the fuck they really got a picture of Jesus? Name one person who was alive with Jesus. How the fuck they telling me I need Jesus?
Hold on. Time out. Foul on the play. The ancestors work in mysterious ways. He said, how they got a picture of Jesus? He said, how they got a picture of Jesus? How do they have a picture of Jesus? Well, it's because the Roman Catholics and the Vatican and the Pope and them, they put out some random image of some dude's nephew or some shit and said, this is Jesus. Hold on, guys. Let's run it back. This is how they have a picture of Jesus. Caesar Borgia is the Vatican's modern depiction of Jesus Christ, also the son of the Pope. Come on, so when they say, how the hell they got a picture of Jesus? They just chose the Pope's son and said, hey, this is your image of Christ now. All right, and I probably butchered the name, but I don't give a fuck about a Roman. Borgia, whatever the hell. That's how we got a picture of Jesus. Come on. Let's get back to it. Y'all see why I like this song, right? It's kind of some ignorant shit, but he be making some valid points.
Get this right, this because of Eve. Okay, I'm forward Adam, but I'll beat the shit out of Eve. How the hell they live at the forbidden tree? Somebody show me the forbidden tree. I believe God, but I ain't too religious. How the fuck they really got a picture of Jesus? Name one person who was alive with Jesus. How the fuck they telling me I need Jesus? If I need Jesus, then where's Jesus? Or if I get shot, I'ma meet Jesus? Or I gotta die just to meet Jesus? This a fucked up world with fucked up people. The first religion, they worship the sun. They made some bullshit story about that. They said the sun went down because of sins. The sun was never gonna come back. Every 1,000 years, it's a new religion. Unk in the street screaming new religion. Pastor got diamonds rocking to religion. Pray to who? You must be tripping. Bitch, I'm praying to my money rag. They said we living in Revelation. Vaccine got us mutating. So fuck it then, I'ma go take it. If the whole world start purging, my daughter gonna still have a Lambo. I'ma have 1,800 guns, 30 Audis and 20 Camaros. They said the world was ended 2012. I was selling crack in 2012. They talking about the calendar ended. 8 years later, a pandemic. Swine flu, Ebola, COVID-19 was different. All of that shit was killing people. I ain't scared of that. Guns kill people. I ain't scared of guns. AIDS kill people. I can die in a car crash. How the fuck you gonna tell me I'm going to heaven? Please tell me when you talk to the dead. Who you met that came from the dead? Show me a picture and show me some proof. Explain to me why the fuck Benjamin Franklin stood his ass up on the roof. How he discovered something out the sky? If that's the case, T-Rex discovered it. If you ask me, this shit made up. I'ma loop the beat cause I ain't said enough. I ain't said enough. In school, I had a lot of questions. Wow, social study teacher making up shit. All that shit was in their head.
Come on.
Who the fuck
is Christopher Columbus? If he would have came to my block talking, he just discovered my track, his ass would have probably got shot. Let's talk about it, y'all. Let's talk about it. I played all that just to get that line out, y'all. It's just something about that line. Who the fuck is Christopher Columbus? If he would have came to my block talking about he discovered my that whatever, he gassing, y'all. He tell me he ain't snapping though. Tell me he ain't snapping.
Study teacher making up shit. All that shit was in their head. Who the fuck is Christopher Columbus? If he would have came to my block talking about he discovered my track, his ass would have probably got shot.
How am I African American? Bitch, I'm an American terrorist.
5th grade smarter than my pen. Grandma couldn't help with algebra. Grandma like, what the fuck is algebra? She like, that's a goddamn shame. Them people gonna keep making up shit trying to keep you in the same grade. They trying to hide shit in a book. I was in jail reading books. OG teach me about real estate. Every landlord I know a crackhead. I'm in the hood with the slum love. Grandma Jehovah Witness, no Christian. Jehovah Witness people move like a cult. They recruit people at their door. How you gonna force religion on somebody? How you change the Bible and tell it to everybody? My Jehovah Witness don't like Christians. They fighting over Jesus' birthday. How the fuck I know Jesus' birthday? Who the fuck is that white man Santa Claus? They say that nigga was eating kids. Why would I let that man lie to my kids? Why would I go out and buy gifts and blame it on a nigga named Santa? Shit, a nigga climb through my roof, I'ma beat his ass in the head with a hammer. You eat my cookies, beat you with a hammer. Drink the kids' milk, beat you with a hammer. Like 100 times buying toys. Well, Santa never dropped me off a toy. Let's get back to Jehovah Witnesses. How the fuck all of y'all awake?
Yeah, he roasts Spanish imperialism, Christianity, Mormons, and Jehovah Witnesses. Now y'all see why I fucks with that song, right? Now y'all see why I fucks with it. But let's go ahead and get back to our regular scheduled program. It's just so riveting. It's just so therapeutic to hear vocalize the shooting of Christopher Columbus for trying to falsely claim that that is already yours. I mean, it's just something about that line that really speaks to me. I mean, who the fuck is Christopher Columbus? He came to my block talking about he discovered my come on, his ass would have got shot.
The southeastern part of the country had the highest concentration of indigenous Native Americans. That fact still holds true to this day. As the Spanish arrived, the natives let off smoke signals up and down the coast to warn of the Spanish fleet. When De Soto landed in Florida, he brought with him over 600 men, over 200 horses, and hundreds of pigs. A little known fact about the conquistadors: they brought attack dogs, mostly mastiffs and hounds, who were fed a steady diet of human flesh and trained to kill. Most villages were small with less than a dozen homes, De Soto and his men would roll 300 deep up on these villages. De Soto would read a statement to these natives as he arrived. You and all your lands now belong to the crown of Spain. Submit and accept Jesus as Lord, and you will be spared. And should you refuse, with the aid of God, we will enter your land against you with force, and we will make war with you in every place and by every means we can.
Come on, y'all. They had to force through genocide us believing in Jesus Christ. Now, centuries later, we willingly grow up in the faith, believing in Jesus Christ. But back then they said, hey, this Jesus dude you never heard of, obey him, worship him, or we will rape and butcher and kill you and steal your resources. Why? Because our Pope told us we can.
And are able. We will put you, your wives, and children into slavery. We will take your property, and we will do you all the harm and evil we can. And that's exactly what they did. De Soto was well schooled in the sport of slaying Indians. De Soto and the Spaniard savages pillaged from the coast of Tampa Bay through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Memphis. A picture of De Soto hangs in the White House, heralding him as a hero and as the man who discovered the Mississippi River.
Yes, you heard that right. The White House, our White House, praises and honors De Soto with a painting. There's even parts of the country named after him. In the Southeast, they have a De Soto National Forest. Y'all, if you heard the name De Soto, you were driving through the South, you saw a county, a river name, and you wonder what De Soto was about. If you wonder why Florida is called Florida, which is not an indigenous name, but it's a Spanish name, well, now we putting you up on game. California. I'm born and raised in Sacramento. On the West Coast, they teach us all about them Spanish missions they built, but they didn't teach us about how those missions were hubs for raping and pillaging and converting indigenous tribes to Catholicism.
According to the official academic narrative, these people must have never existed. Until present day, thousands of mounds are still found all over the Mississippi Basin and the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, including the Cahokia Mounds in Cairo, Illinois, which at one...
Yes, most people don't know that the Americas, the southeast of the United States included, have more pyramids than the rest of the world combined. We're looking at a truncated pyramid located outside of St. Louis. They got these mounds and pyramids and earthworks in Louisiana, Philadelphia, all over. Shout out to Ty. Ty had a genealogy consultation. I believe it was her and her daughter. Y'all remember when I shared with you the video on the mound builders? It gets deep. Matter of fact, if we rewind a little bit, I need to track down this ancient map. This is probably a map that the Spanish drew. Even on this map right here, you see there's listed pyramids. Over here are the pyramids. It doesn't say mounds, it says pyramids. Come on. Did you guys know that there's pyramids located inside of the territory of the United States of America? Did you know that these pyramids are located specifically in the South southeastern United States. Did you know that the southeastern United States is where all these black Indian tribes were? And wait a minute, ding, 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 ding. Doesn't every single native black American have roots in the southeast? I don't care if you're like me, born and raised in California or born and raised in Canada or the East Coast. If you got native black American roots, it goes to the southeast somewhere. On my dad's side, we trace it to Alabama. After the Trail of Tears, they pushed us to Oklahoma. On my mom's side, it's Louisiana. I mean, guys, every black American has roots in the Southeast. And the Southeast is where De Soto documented seeing all these black Indians. I mean, let's just connect the dots, shall we?
The Cahokia Mounds in Cairo, Illinois, which at one point in time was a city bigger than London and Rome. Contrary to historical perspective, the Spaniards faced a tremendous adversary in the Indians from the southeast. An earlier Spanish expedition was subdued when the Indians from the southeast captured a ship and beheaded everyone on board, except for one man who would later become De Soto's interpreter. Whenever De Soto approached a new village, he ordered everyone to be killed. And for the people who didn't fight back, they were taken as slaves. And some were forced by the threat of torture and death to take arms against their own people.
My name's Major Wright. I just got done with my consultation with Mike. If you trying to trace your ancestry, Mike is a good first step to go through. He's going to break it down to you, all 3 steps to get you what you need. And if you want somebody to maybe do the research for you, you pay that price and Mike can help you too. But yes, he will fill you up with knowledge that you never knew and give you all the things like those unanswered questions in your head throughout time. Talk to Mike, man. He's a great dude. I believe in Mike.
In nearly every case, De Soto and his men outnumbered the natives 3-1, sometimes as much as 10-1. His army numbered nearly 1,000 men, half of which were captive slaves being used as frontline ragdoll pawns during the battles that broke out between the Spanish Romans and the Indians. When a battle ensued, it was reported that many Indians from the fighting tribes were as young as 4 years old, and these children would even take their own life in lieu of being captured by a cruel Spaniard. Women and children fought bravely until they were eventually cut down and either retreated or taken as slaves. The Spaniards had steel, which the natives did not. They also had a fleet of mounted knights on horseback to come rescue any Spaniard who got in trouble. And let's not forget about the cannibal attack dogs. But of all this, these would not be the Europeans' most effective weapon.
No, I think the most effective weapon, and guys, I haven't seen this yet. I don't know if, UBTV is going to concur with me, but I think the most effective weapon was the biological terrorism nobody wants to talk about. We want to admit that the British settlers used smallpox blankets to wipe out indigenous tribes, but nobody wants to give the Spanish their due credit for the biological terrorism. They want us to believe that, oh, a couple of Spaniards just sneezed and a bunch of Native Americans died. Oh, the Spanish didn't know what they were doing. The Spanish didn't know about how to take a germ or a disease and transfer it to other people. Guys, the Spanish have been participating in biological terrorism for a long, long time. There's Spanish exploits and wars where they will take sick people, people that have like the bubonic plague and shit, and they'll chop off their head and catapult it over an enemy's walls so that all the people within the castle walls get infected with the disease. The Spanish know about biological terrorism, and they used it to wipe out the indigenous tribes of the Americas before they even used the attack dogs, before they even used the knights in shining armor, before they even used the guns. Guys, they came here with fucking guns. They had guns, attack dogs, knights in shining armor. We were outnumbered. We were outarmed. We were outmaneuvered. Was there really anything we could have done? I mean, in Florida, at least in Florida, they resisted Spanish colonialism for like 400 years. I think Florida was one of the real tough ones for the Spanish to get a foothold in. But y'all, this is wild. Shout out to Trent. Trent says that's how the Black Plague started. Yeah. But shout out to UBTV. I wonder if UBTV is going to talk about the biological terrorism or if he thinks that there was another method that was front and center. Let's see, y'all. Let's find out.
He's about the cannibal attack dogs. But of all this, these would not be the Europeans' most effective weapon. Their most effective weapon was disease.
Ding, 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 ding.
The colonizers brought smallpox and a myriad of other diseases, which eventually would kill almost half of the native population. It was no secret, just as in the voyages of Christopher Columbus, the Spaniards were extremely motivated to find gold. Whenever De Soto ransacked a village, he would aggressively interrogate any surviving captive as to the whereabouts of possible gold.
And you know what? I'm just now seeing we had a Cash App come through from Ebony. Ebony, if you're still watching, post something in the chat. Either way, I thank you for supporting the broadcast and sliding something in the brown paper bag.
Brown paper bag. Brown paper bag.
Always will remain the countless stories of this Spaniard's savagery. His men killed hundreds of thousands of black natives from Florida to Georgia to North Carolina to Tennessee to Mississippi, all while enslaving any survivors. These men, not just in North America, but in South America before, responsible for the plague that wiped out half the population. On later expeditions, it was noted that the once thriving Mississippi Basin, lined with mounds, people, and civilization, had been decimated, and where there had been hundreds of villages, remained just a few.
And mainstream academia helps cover up the biological terrorism that the conquistadors did. Mainstream academia says all the mound builders just like disappeared. Like, You know, the Aztec, the Maya, the mound builders, the Indians just like, you know, poof. We don't know what happened. Like maybe a couple Spaniards sneezed and then a lot of them died, but like they just mysteriously disappeared. And then some British pilgrims came and discovered it. I mean, guys, you see how they're all in cahoots with one another?
Legitimate account of the Native Americans prior to 1700 depicted a dark to copper-skinned race of people who dominated the landscape. But after 1800, every single image of an indigenous American changed. But why is that? When we look at the Spanish depictions of the natives, much is left to the imagination, and it's beyond obvious that these portrayals were completely fabricated in order to characterize the natives as subhuman barbarians. The fake Jew news of Spain often showed the natives as bald, white savages. In 1524, over a decade before De Soto pillaged Florida, Italian explorer Gianni de Verrazzano said this: "The complexion of these people is black, not much different from that of the Ethiopians. Their hair is black and thick and not very long, tied behind the back of the head like a small tail. As for the physique of these men, they are well proportioned, of medium height, a little taller than we are. They have broad chests, strong arms, and the legs and other parts of the body are well composed. There is nothing else, except that they tend to be broad in the face, and they have big black eyes, and an attentive and open look. They have a sharp cunning, and are agile and swift runners." The notable work America by Aldonus Montimus and John Ogilvy is probably the most detailed account produced and illustrated that best describes the New World. Although through history some have argued that because the artist didn't travel to America himself and relied on intelligence, his work was just a fanciful exaggeration.
Hold on, y'all. I gotta run that back. What was that artist? What was the artist who did that depiction of America? Who was that?
Aldonus Montimus
Artemis Modimus. Okay.
and John Ogilvy is probably the most detailed account produced and illustrated that best describes the New World. Although through history some have argued that because the artist didn't travel to America himself and relied on intelligence, his work was just a fanciful exaggeration. This fact could possibly be true, but his descriptions of other parts of the world were never questioned as unauthentic. Furthermore, his illustrations directly parallel descriptions from hundreds of artists from Europe. Although we have more than enough visual evidence of knowing exactly who these Indians were, something is missing. Where is the rest of the art? During the time when thousands upon thousands of Europeans traveled to the New World, only a few pictorial accounts remain. This era was the supposed European Renaissance, where painting a picture of a bowl of fruit was considered fine art, yet where one would expect to have tens of thousands of illustrations, we are left with just a few. These Indians completely scrubbed from history.
Come on, y'all. Make sure to check out UBTV. Shout out to Trent. Trent says our art is in the Vatican and the Royal Palace. Yes, yes. And UBTV was right. All of my research shows that all artist renderings from like 1780 and prior all clearly show Black Indians. Clearly Black Indians. The statues, the journal accounts, the pictures, all of it. And then after the 1800s, it's where now these folks become the face of what an American Indian is. But if we go throughout time, especially if we look at the accounts of the Spanish, this is what they depicted the American Indian as. This is what they depicted the American Indian as. This is what they depicted the American Indians as. East Coast to the West Coast, down south to the Midwest. It was Black folk everywhere. We can keep going. All of the renderings, all of the paintings, all of the depictions, Black folks. And then this is a perfect example of how the British do the whitewash. On the left was the original painting of the Algonquin chief Powhatan, and then on the right, they do the whitewash. You see? This right here is a painting of Indians playing a game at a California mission. We see light-skinned Indians all the way to dark-skinned, basically Black Indians. Let's talk about it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, before we wrap up, I want to thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. You know, don't go anywhere. As soon as this broadcast ends, it's going to push you into the next one. But I want to just do a quick temperature check with the chat. Is there anybody in the chat who've maybe heard rumors that, you know, their family members, their ancestors could have been American Indians or had Aboriginal heritage? Is there anyone in the chat that has heard that? I know we got a lot of quote unquote Black Americans in the chat. No, Lord, I'm not even going to use that bullshit misnomer African American. Oh, Lord, don't make me get into that now. That's why the first thing you see on my website when you check out nativeblackancestry.com is a clear timeline of the racial reclassification. They start calling us Indian in 1492, Negro in 1682, colored in 1851, Black in 1960, African American in 1988. Shout out to Ebony. Ebony says yes. She's heard she has indigenous roots. CB says yes. Trent Gang says, I have that from my grandmother and my aunts. Exactly. Guys, I'm a full-time genealogist. I've consulted with hundreds of Black Americans, and we all have oral tradition of ancestors that were indigenous. But you know what we don't have oral tradition of? African ancestors. Not only do we have oral tradition of ancestors that are indigenous, but we have so many customs that we think are just Black American cultural norms, but really it's indigenous. When we be fucking up that Mexican food and y'all be like, damn, Black folks love Mexican food. No, it's indigenous food. Corn was something that we celebrated as a deity because it gave us such sustenance. Our ancestors were architects, farmers, masters of agriculture. We built pyramids, earthworks, grand civilizations. Meanwhile, Europe was living in filth, that sewer city, London, right? Hoes running from Jack the Ripper and shit. They dodging the bubonic plague. Meanwhile, our ancestors were living like royalty in equilibrium with our environment. But guys, before we transition to the next stream, I want you to connect some dots, okay? Check this out. Damn near every single Black American has oral tradition of Aboriginal roots, for one. For two, you see clearly, if you're looking at the screen, you see clearly they have worked to reclassify us with a new misnomer every 100 or so years. So reclassification efforts is two. Three, there have been other ethnic groups that were slaves in the Americas, but we are the only ethnic group that was prohibited from reading and writing. So what does that tell you? We're just going to connect 3 dots here, and then we're going to transition into the next live stream. The first dot is every Black American has oral tradition of Aboriginal roots. The second dot is that we have clearly been reclassified throughout the centuries. And the third dot is that it is well documented, well known, that we were the only class of slave that was prohibited from reading and writing. So when you take those 3 things and combine them, what does that tell you?
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.